everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the not so great books that I've read so far this year. These range from 1 to 3 stars. The 1 3-star on here is because I was just mostly disappointed in it because I had so much hope for it. But let's start with the 1-star books. So far I've only have the 2 1-star ratings for this year. I read them both pretty recently. The first one is I Hate My Selfie by Shane Dawson. Now I enjoy his content, I enjoy his channel, but apparently I like him for who he is now. Shane a few years back is not someone that I care to know. This is nonfiction. He talks about certain stories from his life. There was maybe 1 or 2 moments that were pretty poignant, and it obviously came from his heart and he wasn't trying to be funny. And I actually see from my Goodreads page that I actually rated this 1.5 stars, not 1 star, so I didn't misspoke, sorry about that. And I did rate it the 1.5 stars, like that half star was because he stopped being funny for a moment and just really laid it out on the line, and I enjoyed those quiet moments more than when he was trying to be funny, because anytime he tried to be funny, he tried using shock humor and it ended up being just cringy and offensive. It was definitely not to my taste. I know he has other books, and because of my experience with this book, I guess that's how I'm going to word it, I'm hesitant to try out his other books. This next book is something that I actually read around the same time as I Hate My Selfie. It's Sync, which is a first book in a series by Emmy Rines. And I actually straight up DNF'd this. It takes so much for me to DNF a book. I made it 3/4 of the way through this where I just, you know what, it's just not for me. And I shelved it. In fact, I didn't just shelve it, I gave it away. I didn't want it anymore. I had to leave my house. And this is a really unpopular opinion on BookTube and in the bookish community at large. There's people who hate that they will rate a book without finishing it. And my opinion is, well, if I did not finish it, it was not good. So I'm rating it 1 star. Part of the storyline was problematic. It follows our main character who's a princess in this underwater kingdom. She's a mermaid. It's vaguely the same plotline as The Little Mermaid. But it's not the king that she's watching out for, it's the queen. And the queen, her mother is considered an evil queen. In this community, there's no men, there's only female mermaids. There's no mermen, I guess that's the word I was trying to look for. And in order to reproduce, all these mermaids, the ones of reproducing age, go up to the surface while it's storming out and there's a ship out there, and as the ship is sinking, they sing their song and they trick one of the men to come down to the bottom of the ocean. There is some magic involved where the men eventually get gills and they can survive a little bit underwater. He does the nasty with that particular mermaid. The mermaid gets pregnant, and right before the baby comes, they kill the man. And I worded it does the nasty. They're not even consenting to any of this. They're brought down against their will. There's a song that the ladies sing that kind of like manipulates the men into wanting to have sex with them. So we have this rape storyline happening, and when they finally got what they needed from them, they kill the men. So definitely not a fan of this particular plot point. Our main character finds out about this when she's finally invited to come along, and she's rightfully horrified. And when she finds out about this, she tries to work against the queen. Before she starts working against the queen, though, she has to go to one of these outings, and she, I guess, accidentally sings to a guy and brings the guy down with her. I guess when they sing, they don't have control over that either. So when she brings that guy down to the, depths of the ocean, she's like, oh my god, what do? I can't actually show him in the kingdom because people will know, and then eventually we'll have to kill him, so we have to try to save him. And the whole storyline follows her trying to figure out how to get this guy back home. I don't know how the story ends, because eventually I was like, you know what? I do not care. Do not care. I didn't care for the style of writing. Also, it had like SpongeBob physics in this world. At one point, she can feel that she has sweaty palms and she's under the water. And she also has a moment where she cries under the water. So I was not a fan of the SpongeBob physics, and so it had to be put away. These next 2 books I did rate 2 stars out of 5 on Goodreads. How I tend to rate books are as follows. 1 is just terrible. 2 is that I find the book kind of meh, but there was enough wrong with it to where I rated it a 2. And if it's a series, if I read a book in a series, I guess the 2 because I didn't care to actually continue with the series. And if it's 3, Again, meh, but it had enough good points where it got a 3, or if it's in a series, it was meh, but I care enough to continue with the series. 4, it was great, it just had some flaws, and 5, absolutely fantastic. I'm usually pretty stingy with my 5s. This next book that I rated 2 stars is another Little Mermaid retelling. It's Part of Your World by Liz Braswell. It's part of the Twisted Tales series, where they take these Disney tales and then they change it to where will the bad guy won. This is what happens. And I was really curious to see how the story would progress because I like Ursula. I love the Little Mermaid, so I want to see what would happen if Ursula won. Honestly, with these characters and the choices that these characters made, they were not like the Disney characters I felt I knew. Granted, the whole story is meant to be open to interpretation. A lot of what happened I just didn't agree with. Like in the Disney movie, Ursula is cunning. I did not get cunning from her while I was reading this. I just got, well, I'm pulling a tantrum, I'm really vain, I'm really this, and it's just, there was just no smarts to her, and Ursula is incredibly intelligent. I wrote down she was just egotistical. Yes, she was egotistical and not cunning. Oh, I also wrote down that Eric also seems like he's an oblivious nitwit. I mean, he kind of was in the movie, but that's because he was actually under the spell. In this, he breaks away from the spell, and just apparently his personality just screams nitwit. But he's a prince with training and an education. I wouldn't have expected him to be a nitwit. The only character I didn't mind was Ariel, but I didn't buy that she could have been queen. Just these weren't the characters that I knew and I loved, and so I rated this 2 stars because of it. I'm still really mad that the reason why Ariel was able to get Ursula's seashell necklace is because Ursula took it off, put it on a bedside table, and went to take a bath. When we all know Ursula in the Disney movies would not have done that. Alright, I'm getting heated over this, so we're just going to get past it. The next book that I rated 2 stars is Release by Patrick Ness. And this was supposed to be like a contemporary with a fantasy twist, and honestly the fantasy part just didn't make sense to me. It felt like 2 different stories was happening, and then at one point they were just forced to like get together because the story kept like changing every other chapter into this other storyline. We had one chapter where it followed our contemporary protagonist, which was Adam. When it followed the contemporary part, Adam is gay, and then he has to come out to his very religious father. So that is the confrontation that Adam is trying to come to terms with in this story. He also loses his job that he desperately needed. It's just a lot is happening. And this really just follows, like, I guess Adam's like worst day of his life, and we have to just follow to see how things will work out for him in the end. And then if it would go in the next chapter, follow the fantasy element of the story. This actually would have been 10 times better if we just took away that fantasy element. This would have been very strong, and I would have loved this as a contemporary. There's just no reason to add that fantasy element to it. And the last book that I'll be talking about today is a book that I rated 3 stars, and it made it onto this list only because I was just so disappointed. This is Moonstruck Volume 2. It's a graphic novel series, and I loved Volume 1. I rated that one 4 out of 5 stars. Story needed some work, but I loved the aesthetic and I still really enjoyed the story. However, in Volume 2, still loved the aesthetic, loved the drawings and the artistry of it, but the story was just all over the place. I felt like there was a lot happening, and this easily would have been better served had they made it into a larger story arc. I know with graphic novels you do have to speed things up in order to get to the main point, but I feel like more things should have happened in order for the story arc to make sense. Basically, the overall story is these 2 werewolf girlfriends, they go to a fraternity party and things go awry. They get trapped into this magical frat house and they have to figure out how to get out, and they get out, but some of their friends had to stay, and so they team up with a sorority house. But the overall story was basically the frat house and the sorority house, they're fairies, and you can't trust fairies, and that's how things go awry. This would have been a great story had there just been more details to it. And I was disappointed in this because I just loved the first book. And the fact that I couldn't love this one just broke my heart a little bit. And that's it. That's all I have to say for this video. These are the bottom 5 books so far this year. Hopefully I don't come across any more 1-star reads this year, but we still got some time left in the year, so maybe I'll be disappointed again. Let me know down in the comments of books that you yourself did not enjoy. And as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I guess it's ta-ta for now. Bye guys.